UKhammocks. Today's video is going to be about setting up our hammock camp. So we're going to be talking about site selection, we're going to be talking tarps, we're going to be talking hammocks and quilts. It's going to be a pretty to the point and bullet fast video, so I'm not going to be slowing down to explain the small basics, but we're going to get there and we're going to set up, talk about different things along the way. So come and join us and let's get this thing set up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look for is selecting the correct site. Now, you know, there's two main points that I look at when I'm selecting the campsite. Point one is, do you have permission to be there? In the UK it's a little bit different than, or in England even, it's a little bit different than the guys that live in Scotland and all you folks over the pond. You know, we don't have a right to roam here, so getting permission to use a particular area of woodland or a particular area of a natural trail can be a little bit tricky, very tricky for some people. You know, an awful lot of people email me and say, you know, I'm having real issues with particular landowners trying to get permission. We're not doing anything wrong. So make sure you can go there. You know, UKhammocks and myself under no circumstances condone wild camping. Okay, so you know, it's against the law, it's trespass, but you know, don't get caught, don't leave any trace, you shouldn't have any problems. Point two, make sure it's safe. Have a little look round, make sure there's no, you know, standing dead trees next to you. This forest that I'm in now, this end of it's not so bad. Down in the centre there's an awful lot of beech, and beech is predominantly known for throwing limbs in the middle of the night for no reason. And the last thing you want is a good old widowmaker coming through your nice new Cuban tarp, because it makes a terrible mess. Okay, it's another reason to use am steel for your ridge lines, you know, they might just break the fall. So we've checked we're allowed to be there, and we've checked that we're safe. So the next thing to do is put our tarp up, and we'll put our hammock up, our quilts, and then we'll sit down and have a cup of coffee. So let's crack on. Okay, so we took our tarp out of the bag, and the first thing that I like to do, and this is depending on how you set your particular tarp up, but I like to take my structural ridge line, and on my structural ridge line I use Dutchware, and if you I'll post a little link up at the bottom there to where Dutch sells his stuff. Some stuff is sold through the Jack's Better website, and other stuff is dealt directly with Dutch through, I think it's Outdoor Trail Gear, but I'm not too sure. This one here is called the Dutch hook. Now what this does is it passes around the tree and locks back onto itself, and it just removes the need to have a knot to tighten it up on one end of the tree. And in there you can see, just slid onto the rope, is something called the Dutch tarp fly. Now that is used to replace we would use something like a figure 9 or a trucker's hitch, or any kind of self-tightening knot that you can get good tension on your ridge line. So for my purposes, although yes it's hardware and yes it's a little bit heavier, it's so much easier to use something small like this. It's very lightweight. That, you know, I've been using this particular set now for maybe 7 months, and there's no sign of wear on my cord, there's no sign of wear on the hardware itself, so it's got a winner for me. Thanks Dutch. Okay, so I unloop or unhank my cord, and then the first end that I pass around is my Dutch hook. Now this goes around the tree, for me at about eye level, head height, and then it hooks back onto itself. You can see how easy that clipped in there, and then I just snug it up in the centre of the tree. It's pretty important that you do this, because if you have it set over to one side of the tree, your tarp ridge line is going to be off centre of your hammock. So always make sure that it comes from the centre of the tree. Now we'll go down the other end and we'll attach the tarp fly. Okay, so the hook's on that side. Pass our cord. Again around our tree. And again ensuring, before I go rock myself, again ensuring that it's at the same level. Now obviously it's pretty hard for you to see the perspective of the camera, but this is on quite a sloped ground, so this side may look a little higher because my feet are lower, but for me to ensure that my hammock and my tarp are square, have a look at it, try and make sure that that's as horizontal as possible. So I'm going to come round and I'm going to locate my tarp fly, and I'm going to run it through the main eye, and then all this does is allows me to pull and put tension on this cord. Okay, and then from there we just wrap it round, and it's got a set of milled teeth that you can just cut your cord into, and then go around once more. Okay, and then I just pass it over the top there of the tarp fly, and that locks it in place. And if you want to, you can put a little slippery half hitch in just behind it, but again, in my opinion, that's not really that necessary. Now you may also see here I've got a small prusik. Now I've got one of these at each end of my ridgeline, and that's what I'm going to attach my tarp to now, using a small carabiner. For this you could use anything. You could use a small plastic toggle on the end of your tarp, or you could actually just tie it off with a small knot or a small hook. You could even use something like the Dutch hook on your tarp and clip it onto this prusik. Okay, so release our tarp from its stuff sack. The tarp I'm using today is the Warbonnet Big Mamba Jamba in Spinnaker, and you'll see that my tarp is nicely tidied away in a set of our netted tarp tubes, and you'll see the ease of these right now. 2 orange carabiners, these are the mini Hammock forums ones. I'm going to clip these onto my prusiks, centralise my tarp using the prusiks, which allow me to move the tarp from side to side and get it square between the trees. Now using the prusiks, I can slide my tarp out so it's taut. And there we go, my tarp's up ready to be pegged down. So we'll release it from its tarp tubes. Again, the tarp tubes are a great piece of kit because it keeps your tarp aired. If it's slightly damp when you pack it away, you can strap it to the outside of your pack, and it just lets it dry off. So let's remove it now. Okay, so we've released our tarp. Next thing we're going to do is stake it out. Now obviously, if we're going to be using this, for an actual sleeping shelter, we'd stake out the front and we'd stake out the back. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to stake them both out backwards. It gives us a little bit of a backdrop for you to see in more detail things like the quilt and the hammock, and also it's not raining and it doesn't look like it's going to rain anytime soon. So we'll peg it out the back out of the way. It gives us a little bit more room to work with. Take 2 titanium stakes. Again, if you wanted to, you could pick up some sticks on the way, whittle them into a small 10 peg and utilise those. But for this purpose, I'm going to be using these stakes. Okay, so it's now staked out. Now an important thing to do when staking out a tarp like that is ensure that you're staking at a 45-degree angle. Okay, so you're cutting this corner here and you're going straight up, and that'll make sure that you get a nice tight pitch. If you're going to come off too far to one side or too square down to the bottom, you'll end up with wrinkles in your tarp and it just won't pitch tight. Okay, so the tarp's up, it's time to put the hammock up. Next out the top of my pack is my hammock. So I'm going to half release one of the ends of my bishop sack. I'm going to take my toggle and I'm going to take a tree strap. Now I'll seal this back up just so that we don't end up getting it wet, the floor slightly damp. So take our tree strap, we locate the sewn eye on one end. Some of you may have a sewn eye on both ends. For me, because I'm using toggles all the time, I only use a sewn eye on one end. Pass this around the tree. Now these trees are about 10.5, 11 feet apart, so for this purpose I'm going to be setting at about eye level, just underneath where my tarp ridge line is. Okay, if the trees were slightly wider apart, we'd have to go slightly further up the tree, and that'll become more apparent in a minute when I show you the angle that you need to have your hammock suspension set at. Pass a loop around the tree, take your free end, pass it through the loop. And again, cinching it up tight and cinching it up in the centre of the tree so it's parallel with your tarp cord. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a marlin spike hitch in and we're going to place our toggle. Now I have shown this in our 3-part setup, so I won't zoom in and bore you with the details. There we go. That's it nice and snug. I'm going to go and do exactly the same at the other side, and then we'll put the hammock up. Okay, so we've put our tree straps at each end. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to locate the correct end of our hammock. For this purpose I want my head end to be at this side and my foot end to be down there. Now I mark that with a small piece of colour coded cord next to my cord lock, so I know which end's the head end of the hammock. We'll unhank our whoopee sling. Now for this purpose I know that I'm going to have to shorten my whoopee sling, so I'll do that before I actually get round to putting it on the toggle. It just makes life a little bit easier. Take the big adjustable light and I place it straight over the toggle and make sure it cinches in behind the knot and not the toggle. It must be behind the knot. If you put weight on the toggle you could overstress it, you could bend or break the toggle and it's going to dump you on the floor. That's one side on. Holding my bishop sack in one hand, I'm just going to walk and it'll remove the hammock from the sack. Okay, so the hammock's now fully removed from the sack. We've got our other whoopee sling in our hand. Again, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to shorten this whoopee sling down a little bit. And we'll place it over our toggle. Shorten that a little bit too much. Okay. Again, making sure it's snugly behind the knot and not the toggle. Okay, I'm just going to adjust this up now and we'll get it nice and centralised. Okay, so to adjust your position of your hammock, we adjust the whoopee slings up and down to ensure that our hammock is inside the tarp at both edges and also at the right height off the floor with the right amount of sag in the ridge line. Okay, there we go. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to check our hammock that is securely fitted to the trees. We're going to do a test sit. We're not going to throw ourselves in just in case we've done something wrong on the suspensions. Have a sit down, make sure it's comfortable, check our ridgeline tension, and then we're good to put our quilts in. Okay, so the first test sit, pull the fabric to the back and we're just going to sit down nice and gently. Okay, and we're going to make sure that the two trees are nice and secure and that we've got a nice 30-degree angle going up from where we're sitting straight up to where it's attached to the trees, and we've got that spot on here. And another good judge of that, you take your internal ridgeline, structural ridgeline, and just give it a small twist with your fingers. It should be tight, but you should be able to put about a half turn in there when you're sat in it. That way you know you've got it set just right. Okay, hammock's set. Now it's time to insulate our underside. Now if you're using a sleeping pad, now would be the time you'd insert your sleeping pad in on the diagonal, so it's going to insulate you from cold air rising up from the ground and any wind that's going to come across. For this purpose I'm going to be using one of our underquilts. Now I've removed the underquilt tri-plates that were on the quilt before I brought it out, just so you can see how to set it up as it comes straight from the shop. Okay, each end of your underquilt, the shock cord suspension have come out, and this allows the quilt to slide up and down the suspension so you can position it just right in your hammock. Now all we're going to do is we're going to pass the loop in the suspension and we're going to pass it over the knot of fabric that's located at the end of it, the hammock, and we literally just slip it over the top and that's it done. We make sure that the quilt comes underneath the hammock and we do exactly the same on this side. Okay, so there's the underquilt fitted. Now we need to just adjust it up so that it's in the right position. and then we can start thinking about insulating our top half. Okay, so to ensure that our quilt is set right, we can slide the quilt backwards and forwards along the channel suspension. I like to have mine so it's positioned a little bit further this way, so it's going to snug up around my shoulders and heat me to the lower of my calf. On the ends of the quilts there's another shock cord, and that can be tightened or loosened to cinch up the bottom of the head end and the foot end of the quilt to give it a tight seal around. And again, it's another good idea to just hang in your hammock. Just make sure your quilt comes up, your quilt's not touching the floor, and that it's going to keep you nice and warm, and you've got the tension just right on your quilt, and this is spot on. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our top quilt in, and we're going to lay down. Okay, so we took our top quilt out of the pack. As you can see, the top quilt has got an open back, and it's got a closed sewn in foot box, and it's also got a draw cord neck with a side release buckle, and that helps it cinch up around our neck. So we'll sit back, we'll throw the quilt in, pop our feet in the foot box, and then we're ready to rock and roll. Remove our shoes. Get ourselves snugged up. Locate your foot box. Throw it down the foot end. Get your feet in there. And then, if you are wanting to use the snap neck, close it up first, place it over your head, tuck your shoulders in, ensure that your underquilt is all snugged up by your shoulders. And there we go. We've got a good seal insulating this from the top and insulating this from the bottom. And I'm pretty much ready to go to sleep now. Okay folks, so as you can see, we've set up our tarp, we've selected our site correctly, we've put our hammock up, keeping a good 25 to 30 degree angle up to both trees. We've set our underquilt and we've got in with our top quilt. There really is nothing else to it. Now, you know, hammock camping is a really wide spectrum, and there's an awful lot of ways that you can do stuff. From hanging your tarp up with the ridgeline being on top or underneath, without having a ridgeline and just having separate cords. How to hang your hammock. I mean, there is so many different ways to hang a hammock. Equally, there's so many different ways to use a quilt. My biggest advice is to get yourselves onto hammockforums.net and trail through all the posts and threads on there, because there's some fantastic information. There's a wealth of people that are more than willing to share their experiences and their advice. Also, another one to check is the Shug Emery channel here on YouTube. Now, Sugar did a really comprehensive 10 or 11 part series on how to hang, and I can't, advise it enough. He breaks down everything that we've taken here into individual aspects, selecting a tarp, staking out a tarp, ridge lines, hammocks, quilts, insulation. He covers everything, and apart from that, you'll have a real good laugh along the way. He's one funny guy, that's for sure. So check out Shug's videos, check out hammockforums.net. If you're in the UK, get yourself on something like Bushcraft UK, backpacking light. There's plenty of hammock hangers on there that'll be more than happy to help you out as well. Further than that, drop me an email, give me a phone call, and I'll talk you through it as well. Thanks for watching, guys. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.